On this episode of Africa's Big Switch, the team sat together with Eder, who is Rwanda's country manager at Sawa Energy. Sawa Energy is a solar energy startup that focuses on finance solar solutions for East African businesses and institutions. Eder also holds a mechanical engineering with a master's in renewable energy engineering and is passionate about using renewables to create pathways for resource ownership for Africans. We hope you enjoy this.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Africa's Big Switch. Today I'll be joined by Eder Munyampenda, who is the country manager for Sawa Energy. Hi Eder, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Very interesting background. I kind of stalked you a little bit before we started recording. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I feel like it's a little bit boring because I have such a similar background to you.
I know, but it's interesting to me because I want to speak to other people.
Right. Well, yeah, like you said, my name is Eder Munyapenda. I have a bachelor's in mechanical engineering. I'm a mechanical engineer by trade, and a master's in renewable energy engineering. I am Rwanda Canadian, so I grew up in Canada for about the first 15 years of my life and then moved back to Rwanda where I finished high school and came back after university. I work in the energy space and since 2022, I've been working at Sawa Energy, first as technical sales manager, and then now as country director, country manager, really leading the deployment strategy for Rwanda for our services at Sawa Energy. Just a big energy geek, energy nerd. Always been passionate about energy as long as I could remember.
Interesting. This is a safe space for energy nerds, by the way, because you're talking to one. You said you've always been passionate about energy. Why is that?
That is an interesting question because I try to answer that for myself every couple of years, just as a refresher for my passion. But honestly, there was two things I would say that really pushed me towards energy. I think as an engineer, and when you start really wanting to become an engineer, wanting to learn how things work and how things break, you realize that nothing really moves without energy. So there's this technical fascination with how are we powering the world? How are we making any economic activity work, any livelihood work, and it's through energy. So there's this really massive question about how we sustain it and how we develop new streams of getting energy and cleaner energy, obviously. And then there's the aspect of when I moved from Canada back to Rwanda, I noticed that a lot of the energy resources, not even energy resources, but resources in general, weren't owned by Africans. And I was really fascinated about how renewable energy could be the pathway for Africans owning their resources. And it was a new developing space, and I really wanted to get involved in that, be like, okay, this could be a way for young Africans to really own the resources on their continent. So I think those two things sort of pushed me into the energy space. And as long as I can remember, I've been in it. I remember in high school, my first internship was at Rwanda's big exposition where people were putting up startups and explaining their startups. And I worked for a company called Rwanda Green Energy. And it was basically a startup doing solar LED lights. And I barely knew about anything, but I was there explaining it to people who were trying to buy these, well, at the time, newfangled LED lights. And as I went to university, I realized all my electives were in energy. So it's really been a thing, like a very big through line throughout my career and throughout my life, really.
That's interesting. I think now that you're talking, I'm realizing that there's actually a lot more similarities between us. Because do you know when you said the engineering route where you're just like fascinated about how things work and like kind of let's rip this apart and let's see like what's inside approach. I think that's how it was for me as well. And that's how I got into mech eng. And what I noticed again, based on what you said, was you were selling LED lights without fully understanding what it was.
Right.
So you're
Right.
basically born to be a salesman as well as an engineer.
I think so. I think I must have lost a little. I had to relearn the sales part when I joined Sawa Energy, but yeah, I guess you're right there.
Interesting. So let's talk about Sawa Energy.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about Sawa Energy. Like, what do you guys do?
Sawa Energy is a company that was started by three Canadian founders in 2019. They're all from Montreal. Really cool guys. And I'm not just saying that because they're going to hear this later. But
it's almost bonus season.
It's the end of the year, man. What can I tell you? It started in 2019 in Rwanda, headquartered in Rwanda, and it was basically trying to answer a simple question. We have great solar resources in Rwanda. We have all these rolling hills, so you could see the rooftops of a lot of places, depending on the vantage point you're on. And they realized that there was no deployment of solar, residential, commercial, industrial. It just wasn't there at a scale that made sense. So it was really tackling that question, like why isn't there deployment of solar, and how can we change that, basically. So they started really tackling that question, and really what they found out is the two main barriers. I would say three main barriers was nobody wants to deal with the operational headache. That's one. Two, there's a large upfront cost to solar for people that are running businesses. And then three, there's really a trust factor where people in Rwanda at the time didn't trust the technology. So Sawa Energy was started to really solve those three challenges. And what we do is bring finance solar solutions for Rwandan businesses. We've since moved into Uganda, so East African businesses, that allows them to save on their energy costs. So it allows us to take care of all the operation and maintenance. It allows us to take care of the financing, so there's no upfront costs for the specific business, and it allows us to go in there and say, we'll take care of everything. And you guys just sit here and benefit from the solar energy that's already hitting your roof anyway.
I like the way you kind of broke down the challenges. What I found interesting was you started from the perspective of just realizing the potential in the market and asking the question as to, well, not you, but the founders of Sawa Energy.
Yeah.
So like they looked out and they saw like, there's this space where no one's exploring, and why aren't we exploring that space? But then that reason is slightly different from some of the other founders I've spoken to. So in terms of energy access, like is Rwanda just like smashing it? Because I know you guys are smashing it in a lot. Like you're doing very well in a lot of places.
Absolutely.
So is that like 100% electricity access, or like let me say 99% of electricity access in Rwanda?
I think within Kigali, it's the capital. It's pretty much at a 99%. I would say. As you go further out, there is less availability, but it's still quite high for a lot of the different markets compared to a lot of the different markets in sub-Saharan Africa. I think one of the things that the government has done extremely well is really invest in transmission, generation, and giving people access to energy. I think that's one of the things that they've done extremely well. Another thing that they've done extremely well is they really put their all into making Rwanda a green country. that allows Sawa Energy really to thrive, because anytime we approach a business or an institution, they know we're aligned with the country's values in general. So yeah, I think Rwanda in general is doing a great job of energy access. Could it be better? Of course. Um, just like anything, it can be better. And I think there's innovative ways of bridging the gaps for different companies that's going into rural areas, solar home systems, mini grids, tapping into mini grids. For us, we really wanted to figure out why commercially viable solar has not really taken off in Rwanda, and that's the real problem we're trying to solve. And I think the way we do it is through our business model. And I think it's the first business model. It's the first company that's doing our business model in Rwanda, where we give the systems at no upfront cost. We give them the systems and enter a long-term agreement with a company for them to buy our electricity at a discounted price. So there's no real financial or operational risk to our clients. And I think it's something that a lot of companies within Rwanda, companies that really suffer through the burden of heavy electricity costs, I think could benefit really well from.
That's amazing. And that kind of brings us nicely into the next section, where I was going to ask about how Sawa Energy is tackling or playing in the solar energy market. You mentioned a few things there. So no upfront cost, long-term electricity contract, and you get it at a discounted price.
Yeah.
My question is how? Like, how do you get it at a discounted price and you're not paying anything upfront?
Yeah, so we enter in an agreement, what we call a power purchase agreement. I'm sure you've heard of it. A lot of people from the hydro space use them, and it's basically a long-term agreement with a company that says you're going to buy electricity at this certain cost. We have great investors that allow us the cost of capital to make sure that our system and our electricity price can compete with the grid, with the EUCL is what they call it here, the grid electricity prices. And maybe that's not in every subsector of the electricity prices. There are some that have preferential tariffs, like industrials, where we're not able to compete with yet. But a lot of the categories of tariffs we're able to compete with on-grid solar. Not quite yet with off-grid solar and solar plus battery. For those, we probably do a lease to own for our different clients. But for on-grid solar, we've been able to compete fairly well, and we've been able to grow our portfolio quite quickly because of what I said. There's no really a financial or operational risk because they know that no matter what, our price is going to be less than the grid price that they're currently consuming anyway.
I like that. That's very interesting. I saw the company profile and I saw some very interesting names. And if you're African, then you've heard of MTN. And I've seen that, I've seen you guys have done a project with them. Done a project in hospitals, in schools, in data centers. So if I wanted to request like a solution from Sawa Energy, can you please, I guess, walk me through that process? Like, how long would it take? Do I have to wait for shipment from somewhere for the solar panels? Do I need like battery solution? And will I be able to sell, like, am I selling back electricity to the grid or just getting it at a discounted price? A lot of questions.
Yeah.
But okay, let's start with one. Okay. So walk me through the process of requesting as a customer now, from customer's perspective. I want to buy solar for my, data center.
Yeah. We have 2 data centers currently. MTN is one of them. It's a real blessing to work with MTN because it's a very recognizable brand across in Rwanda and across Africa. So it really gives you some credibility on the market. we're actually expanding our deployment with them at the end of Q4. So I'm really excited. We're doing a few projects for their upcountry switch center. So I'm really excited about that. But yeah, so you're a data center. You reach out to me or I come to you and then you say, okay, I would like to explore solar. I basically take your consumption profile, what it looks like for you to consume electricity. And then I sort of run it through our process that allows me to say, okay, this is a qualified client, basically, a client that I'm able to work with, that Sawa is able to work with. Once I get that, I go through some modeling that allows me to size the system, that allows me to also give a electricity price that is a discounted price on your current electricity tariff, right? And then I make a proposal for you. I go into the office, I talk to the CFO or the CEO or whoever the decision maker is, and I say, okay, I'd love to give you 10% discount on what you're currently paying for every unit of electricity I'm able to give to you. And then we go through proposal negotiation. You say, I like this, I don't like this. And we find a way to agree on the big terms that will be highlighted in the PPA. Once we get a rough agreement, there's like a signing of a proposal, which is a non-binding agreement. And then we're able to pour resources into the project. Be like, okay, this person really wants this project. This data center really wants to go solar. I'm able to now pour resources into that, and that's technical resources. So we do structural, electrical analysis, design. We're able to pour financial resources, obviously, through our lawyers, making sure our finance team is doing corporate credit checks and stuff like that. And then once we finish that, we have the design. We're able to move to a contract negotiation. And once we sign a contract, we're able to deploy, let's say, a 50 kilowatt system within 3 weeks. So you go from, let's say, reaching out to us, and within 2 months, probably you're able to start saving on your electricity bills through solar and Sawa Energy. So it's a really fast process. And the reason we're able to do that is we have material in country, and that really gave us a competitive advantage because we went from signing contracts to deploying within a week.
Wow, a week.
Yeah. If you have it in the warehouse, you have the panels, you have the inverters, you have the railing. It's just a little bit and the solar cables, just a little bit of procurement, mobilizing the team, and I'm on your roof in a week after a signed contract. So it's really one of the best things I've learned since joining Sawa Energy is you have to cut down any of the space within the sales cycle. Not only within the sales cycle, but in the construction cycle, you have to really move as efficiently as possible to really gain credibility within the market.
That's incredible. And I like how you kind of started talking about some of the lessons you've learned, because I guess my next question is more in terms of, okay, so the way you've explained it sounds really cool. It means like I can start this conversation with you next weekend. I don't know, come to Rwanda, say hi, and then before I leave, I have solar panels on whatever business I have in Rwanda. So like that's incredible. I think that's really quick, and it's good to see like things move that quickly. My question is in terms of the challenges, like, is it always smooth sailing?
Oh, there's nothing smooth sailing, as you probably know, working in the energy sector.
Okay, so let's dig into it, because obviously as a startup as well, like it's not cozy.
Yeah, absolutely. There's challenges, lessons learned.
Mm-hmm.
I think the partners could tell you while they were having our inventory delivered in the middle of COVID, there was a full lockdown in Rwanda, and there's a warehouse showing up there's a container, showing up at the office. So how do you navigate a full lockdown and a container being delivered at the office? How do you get the panels inside the office into our warehouse? There were many challenges at the start, and I think we just have a very diligent and get after it team. We're hustlers. I think the ethos of Sawa Energy is hustlers, and we really don't like taking no for an answer. But yeah, challenges. I think one of the biggest challenges, obviously, I mentioned it before, but it's trust and education within the sector. I think people think of solar in the rural solar home system a way, and instead of thinking of it as a viable energy solution for a business. So it takes a lot of convincing for a company such as an MTN or such as like a data center where they need 100% uptime, or a hospital. These guys need to be sure that we're not going to be messing with their electrical infrastructure. And for hospitals, it's absolutely vital. It's not like, your mobile money is not working. It's people can lose their lives. So it's really about talking to the technical team, convincing the senior management at every company that this is a viable solution that can save you a lot of money in the long term. It really works. And a lot of the times I feel that because companies prior operating in Rwanda were selling the system, not really selling a solution, there have been horror stories about solar not working after a year and a half. And then I come into your office and I say, hey, I got the solar solution, and you just don't want to hear about it. So trust and education is a really big challenge within Rwanda. Another one is the current regulatory framework in Rwanda is we're not allowed to sell to the grid, and the maximum size we're able to deploy at every site is 50 kilowatts, right? So if you take our business model, for example, it relies heavily on investors coming in and giving us the capital that allows us to deploy these systems. If you go to an investor and you say, hey, I want to get this money, let's say I want a 3 megawatt portfolio, and he says, how long is that going to take? Is that going to be 4 projects, 5 projects? Because he's used to deploying a megawatt at a time. And you tell them, no, it's going to be X amount of projects because you can only do 50 kilowatts. They're less inclined to give you their money. And they're probably going to give it to you at a higher cost of capital, which raises our per unit price. So there are different challenges. And I think Sawa Energy has been able to navigate them very well, finding partners that really believe in us and finding our niche space that allows us to grow at a very organic and sustainable rate.
Really cool. So I spoke to I think now he's a country manager actually in Daystar Power,
Mm-hmm.
and he said the same thing. And he said, most people, I mean, at the start, solar was a buzzword like we're speaking about, and people just wanted solar because it was cool. But a lot of people sold solar systems without selling the solutions. And that's why, like right now, I still have conversations with my friends who are not in the energy space, and he's like sending me some tweets, and well, I don't know what you call tweets nowadays since it's no longer Twitter. He was sending me like one of those, and it was like, the German chancellor is in Africa doing tours, and the tweet kind of said something along the lines of, they want Africa's resources, and they're telling us to go green. And like solar, what's the benefit of solar? It's great for like off grid, but like can it power like the banks and the big things? And I keep re-emphasizing the same thing. Like we have the same conversation every time, and I keep saying the same thing. Like so I can imagine how it must be for you to like sell the solutions, because people just have a perception, which fair enough. At the time, there was a lot of, I guess, people kind of learn as time goes by. But yeah, what you're doing is really cool.
No, I was gonna say absolutely. I face that perception of solar everywhere I go. I think just doing on-grid solar. You go into a office building and say, I want to just take care of your daytime consumption as much as I can, and they're like, but there are no batteries. This doesn't make sense. And because the whole perception of solar is through off-grid solar, it's for a place that doesn't have electricity. We're going to give solar plus battery to make sure that a place has electricity in the end. So I think battling that perception is something that takes time, takes patience, and it really takes a track record that I think Sawa Energy is now building. I think within Rwanda and East Africa, in Rwanda we have a megawatt under, actually more now. We're constructing, I believe, 3 projects at the moment. So that track record is starting to grow and grow, and my aim as the country manager is to make sure that solar within Rwanda is like synonymous with Sawa Energy, right? That's my aim. I'm sure it's the aim of the country directors for other companies as well. But I think building that track record is really, really important in a geography like Rwanda.
Interesting. I should have asked this at the start. What does Sawa mean?
Sawa is a word that means, it's a Swahili word that means so many things, but it essentially means good. The founders really wanted it to be synonymous with the good energy we're bringing to Rwanda and East Africa.
Really cool. And I like the fact that you mentioned in Rwanda, your focus is this. So I'm guessing, because I did some research and I saw that you also have offices in Uganda and I think in Netherlands and Canada. So how many countries do you operate in?
So we operate in 2, Rwanda and Uganda at the moment. Netherlands and Canada, we have our co-founder, CIO, that's based in Canada, a board member based in Canada, and our investors sit in the Netherlands. Our main investors sit in the Netherlands. We're just closing a round. We're about to close a round, I believe, that will allow us to expand into further geographies within East Africa. So it's really exciting. We're at a growth stage that is very exciting to see, where you start in Rwanda, and then a year ago we were able to enter into the market in Uganda, build. We've already have, I believe, four projects underway in Uganda, 2 that are already built and 2 in construction right now. And then I see us just moving into different geographies, different spaces, and replicating our ethos, but obviously tailoring it to every individual market.
And what do you think some of those challenges would be, or based on your experience operating in Uganda, which is also in East Africa, but obviously Africa is not a country, like there are different nuances and different cultural differences. What do you think the challenges would be?
This would be a great question for my colleague, Alan. I can probably link you guys.
Okay.
He's the country director in Uganda. But from just what I saw is there's differences, there's nuances to every country. And one of them is just the regulatory environment. So you have to learn about the regulatory environment. You have to learn about the electricity pricing environment. Different countries price their electricity in different ways. You have to learn about the actual sales environment. Selling to somebody in Rwanda is completely different to selling to a businessman in Uganda or a businesswoman in Uganda. It's an extremely different ball game. The appetite for risk is different. The sales cycle, it might be shorter or longer in different geographies, and you have to adapt to all of those things. Every time you enter into a geography, you're essentially building the infrastructure that we did in Rwanda and trying to build that exact same infrastructure in Rwanda. So setting up a accounting system, setting up the lawyers, an entire infrastructure that you have to build from scratch. And you have to navigate those differences, those cultural differences, those economic differences, those technical differences. I think one of the things that I laugh about with the Ugandan team is I'm able to get to any meeting in Kigali within 20 minutes. So I don't really have to really plan ahead that much when it comes to scheduling meetings. The Ugandan team, it might be stuck in traffic for 4 hours. It's just a bigger country. There's more traffic. There's different. It's just different. So just things like that are nuances to different geographies when you're working in that sector.
Cool. If you ever think about coming to Lagos, traffic is also something you guys should consider.
Is it bad?
Oh wow, it's really bad. You can spend 4 hours going one way and then 4 hours coming back. So you can spend like an 8-hour work day in traffic if you're not careful. But no, like I mean, it's still come because I think we actually need some of the solutions and in Nigeria because I'm Nigerian and we have startups and companies that do things that are similar to what you guys do. But like you said, there are different nuances and sometimes you kind of have to navigate those challenges. But like Nigeria is such a massive market, and I feel like if you hack Nigeria, then you're good. Like you're good financially.
Every time I've talked to a Nigerian in the energy space there, they say that you have to involve generators. Like you have to have like a solar plus generator solution. Is that really the case?
I am not sure, to be honest. I'm not sure. I've seen people try manufacturing of like batteries, and I've seen like I understand the challenges there. So Emmanuel from Sawa Energy, his startup basically looks at building like battery components. So they assemble the battery components and they sell it with solar mini grid. I spoke to Natasha Ibori. She operates like across the southern part of Nigeria, and they started up with manufacturing, and now they're doing like solar marketplace. So I there's obviously so many different approaches to operating solar energy. Solar and generators, I've seen that work for like banks. Maybe less so for like farming, because they might just want to learn batteries. But yeah, like it's interesting. Cool. So like one more question before I ask my bonus question. Which is, what are some of the lessons that you've learned that you think would be useful to some of our listeners at ABS?
Oh, wow. Great question. Lessons learned. I think that as engineers, if the audience is engineers, or just something that I didn't know as an engineer, is that it's really important to understand the finance and sales side of any business that you're working with or working for. You have to understand how you're making money. Otherwise, it just won't be sustainable enough for you to get your cool idea, your cool product, your cool technology off the ground long enough for you to actually make an impact. So that impact that you're trying to make, it just won't be sustainable enough. So I think the lesson that I learned on a personal front is it's really important for engineers to go out with the sales team. It's really important for you to spend an hour with the finance team or the accountants, or talk to the CIO and understand how we're able to give solar systems at no upfront cost and still make money. That's really important for people on the technical side to learn. And I think that's a lesson that I learned fairly quickly once I joined Sawa Energy. I was the first employee. So I had three founders, and it was me. So it was up to me to like really strive to grasp any information I could get from them, to really be curious about how the business is actually working and actually functioning.
Wow. I can imagine how the interview went. It's just like, oh, so tell me about your company. And it's like, oh, you're the first. you tell us what the work-life balance should be.
That's really exciting as well, though. You can imagine it's daunting, but it's exciting because you're the first one. You get to set a lot of the things. They give you responsibilities maybe that they wouldn't normally give you. If you're entering into a massive company, you're able to find the space and the time to actually get that information that I'm speaking about. So it's a very daunting where a lot of things rest on your shoulders, but it's also very exciting because you're able to really carve out the direction of the company along with the founders, right? So yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I'm still enjoying it.
That's cool, man. That's cool. I'll be rooting for you guys. So my bonus question, and it's a question we always ask at the end of our podcast, which is, if you were to travel anywhere in Africa on an all expense paid trip, where would it be and why?
Is this personal or business?
Anything. You can go for business, you can go for personal. Like you have a ticket anywhere to Africa, all expenses paid. Where would you go?
I'm really fascinated, and it's not just because you're here, but I'm really fascinated about how Nigeria works. Just on the scale that it is, it's such a massive country. It's so vibrant, so different on one end of it to the other, and I'm just very curious on a business front how you grow a business within such a market like Nigeria. So I think on a business aspect, I think I would love to go to Nigeria, and really try and crack the code. I probably am not the first person to ever say that, but yeah, I think it's absolutely fascinating. From a personal standpoint, and I'm going there soon, is Namibia, because I think it just looks absolutely stunning. Like it has the mix of the desert. I went to school in Abu Dhabi, so I really miss the desert. So you got the desert, you got the CEE, you got it just seems like a very interesting place geographically. So I think I'm gonna go with Namibia on the personal front.
Interesting. And for Lagos, Habibi, come to Lagos. Like just let's do it. Let's make
I got an invite.
You got an invite. No expenses paid. No expenses paid. Let's do it. Let's
go. As long as I got a couch to sleep on, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, there's a direct flight from Rwanda to Abuja.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, absolutely. So there you have it. It's destined to happen.
Absolutely.
But Eder, thank you very much for doing this podcast episode with me. It's been really interesting and really fascinating what you're doing at Sawa Energy. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me.